Yes, let's go through that. So yeah, I founded a company called QTA. We help companies design, launch, and manage partnerships. So we look at partnerships as one of the main routes to scaling companies out. I also look after the ex-Google network. So that's around 5,000 Googlers in London and a lot of EMEA that have basically left. So people from places like Google DeepMind to the people that do the cameras for Street View. We sort of help them figure out what to do next, what companies to build, how to raise funding, etc. And then DOGO, which I'll show you a very short video on as well, so you can get an understanding of kind of what we did, how we built it, why we built it in a certain way, how we funded it. Um, but yeah, I've spent a lot of time actually working with startups on their funding journey. So I run the ex-Google demo days. So these are demo days where we typically have around 10 ex-Google startups pitching to usually anywhere between 100 and 150 VCs and angels. And we're getting ready for our fifth one now. And I think we've 4 years we've been doing them. We've helped startups raise over 50 million. So they're usually quite successful. And it's not about the pitching on the day, it's about getting people prepared for that pitching. So hopefully we can share some of those tips that we've learned from that. Let me just very quickly show you DOGO. There we go. I think actually maybe there's a lot of partnership opportunities with what you guys are doing in the fields as well. And actually, I'm more than happy to be contacted for any of those. So if you want to learn more about the charity, how we work, how we set everything up, it's a bit of a different story, but we can go through that. But I wanted to sort of give you the grounding of the project, and I think it really sets the tone because DOGO, we have to do two things. We have to raise capital to actually build the product, and then we need to raise donation funds to actually deliver the treatments each month. So in terms of going out and getting funding, we're kind of doing a bit of everything. So it'd be good to share what we've learned and the things that we've been working on as well for you. I think for me, there's sort of three key learnings I kind of keep in my life in general. I think they're highly applicable to business, which is do less to do more with less, and don't major on minor things. And I think this really translates over into the fundraising status and also getting yourself in a position to tell a compelling story. So, do less to do more. Like this will really come in handy when we're talking about who to pitch, how to pitch. Actually, it's way better to get a high quality of a donor list and spend time and effort going through them, going through the applications and working on it, rather than just going, let me message everyone with the same generic message. So I think that's quite interesting. Do more with less. I think in this environment, no matter how good your pitch is, our money is tight, and really understanding, do I need to raise as much as I think I need to raise? How can I do more with less? How can I be more efficient? How can I leverage technology, etc.? And don't major on minor things. For me, this is a really key one, which is a lot of people will put off and delay asking for money, asking for things because they say, oh, once I have this metric, then I'm going to ask people for money. Or once I get this many customers, I'll ask you. Or once I do, and like that, those things aren't the main things. Like the core business proposition and how it can really impact and change people's lives should be the thing at all times. And worrying about X, Y, and Z or whatever the thing is that's holding you back isn't usually the thing. So, not spending time on the small things and really shooting for the big things and the big deals as well. I think you've only got so much energy to use, so make sure you expend it well. So I think fundamentally, no, I'm not going to sit here and say, do all these things and you're going to be rich, you're going to have all this donor funding coming in. That there literally is no master plan. Uh, what there are a set of heuristics and best practices. So things that you need to be doing, things that you need to be setting yourself up for to really give you that success. And I'll kind of walk you through a lot of those. But I think, we start with this, and Peter Drucker is one of the godfathers of sort of modern business management, but he's got this very powerful saying, you can't manage what you can't measure. And this comes in twofold. Like one, you should be setting your businesses up to manage as much as to measure as much as possible. But two, this is a donor game. This is why people give you the money. Like they want to see that impact amplified. It's I've got £1 to give here or 1,000 naira to give here. What will it come back as? Is it 5,000 naira? Is it a million naira? From both the financial point of view, like what's my return on investment going to be? Like, will I make a capital return on this? But also from the point of view of what type of impact can I have? Because a lot of these donors are getting money from bigger bodies that they then have to report to. So if the UN give them £10 million, the UN want to see in their next report that it was turned into £50 million. And is giving you some of that money going to give them a 5x return or not? And I think it's really important to look through things through that lens and really understand what is the person who's giving me the money targeted for, and how can I make sure I have the right measurements to give back to them. For us, we look at DOGO is basically a data company when you think about it. Like every single piece of medication we track, we know the prices, we understand disease prevalence in each area and how that's changing, and we can try and understand why. We can understand the price variability of different medicines, age range of people coming in, and it's how do we use and harness this to really tell a compelling story is kind of what we do. So when people say, oh, I want to only work with girls under 3 years old in northern Nigeria, we say, well, here you go. Here's the data. Here's what we can do. Having that set up in that way really helps drive your story. So really think deeply about the data you're collecting and what value you can turn that into, because people run around saying data is a new oil. I think as a Nigerian, I'm not sure if we're cursed by oil, so I don't know if that's a good thing. But anyway, yeah, definitely keeping data is really important. So yeah, we look at the prevalence of diseases, the cost, and the effectiveness of our treatments. Those are the three main pillars that we kind of run the charity under. And they want impact, they want to understand things. So if you can see here, we can see exactly which of our stands are delivering what to who, the cost per treatment, the fluctuations of those, and really not only manage our business through that, but also tell an investor that we're kind of in control. We understand how the capital is coming in and going out. We understand what impact it will drive. And that makes them a lot more comfortable about having these conversations, about engaging, about giving capital out. I think when you are on the receiving end of pitches, you see this a lot. Like everyone's giving you good pitches. It is what it is, right? Like for this demo day we're doing upcoming, I have to pick 10 startups from 40 companies. And they're all great companies. They're all developers and experts in their own right. And I really got to whittle that down. So unfortunately, 5-star just isn't good enough. And I kind of say, always go for 10 stars. And Airbnb have this really exciting exercise where, even just as a thought experiment, always ask, what would a 10-star experience look like? and started from 6 stars. So, okay, DOGO, 5 stars is we give someone treatment, they go home and they're well. Okay, what's 6 stars? Okay, well, maybe we give them a meal to also go home with so that they can have the medicine, not on an empty stomach. Okay, what does 7 stars look like? Well, maybe actually they don't come to the stand or the hospital. Maybe the hospital comes to them, and maybe a doctor comes to them and treats them and then doesn't leave until they're better. Okay, what does 8 stars look like? And if you can keep running on that experiment and that thought process until you get to 10, you realize that maybe there's a few of them that you can actually do right now. But even better, it will help you tell a better story to investors where you can say, in 3 years, these are the things that we're going to be doing. This is the impact we're going to have. This is how far we think we can take this technology, this company, the work that we're doing on the ground. So I think really keeping that in mind, that it's an important part of the story if you can really vision past where you are now is a good sort of heuristic to have. For us, we look at it as 3 different sets of 10 stars. So how can the donation process be a 10-star experience? So how can the information we give you about the patients and the cost it was and how you can have an impact, and if you can add a gift to the service, that's kind of how we look at that. And then on the stand, when someone comes to a DOGO stand and signs up, how can that be as smooth and seamless as possible and stress-free? And then the treatment, like how could the treatment that the doctors are giving be as smooth and as effective as possible as well? So that's kind of how we look at it. But fundamentally, I think to really survive and to really thrive now, we need to be thinking about almost ruthless innovation. We need to constantly be thinking about what sets me apart from these other people that are trying to get the funding that I'm going for, right? I think it's a really important thing now as things are getting tighter. Ideas need to be more transformative. They need to be more thought out. I think really just coming at it from an innovation point of view has a lot, and that putting that into the pitch has a lot of success. For instance, we're trying to do new ways to actually do acquisition. So one of the ways in which we DOGO try and get downloads is running ads. So we'll run ads on Facebook or on Google, but they obviously come at a cost. So when someone downloads the app, we actually have a cost that it costs them to download. So what we have is a screen that pops up and says, hey, by the way, it actually cost us £2.32 to acquire you. Would you want to add that to your first bill and help us basically cover that? Which is an interesting thing in of itself, but depending on where we actually, and the number that we actually show people, we can actually have unlimited downloads or unlimited ad spend, because all the costs that we're incurring will get covered by the people that download. So long as it's not £50 or something crazy, actually, we could, in theory, get unlimited downloads, which can help us scale massively. So coming up with new ideas to solve challenges, you have to be scrappy, especially in the social enterprise space where, it's a weird place to be in, because people are like, oh, you can't make money on that. You can't charge people for this. You can't. So you're always limited. So you really have to come in it from an innovation standpoint. This is kind of why this is kind of the information we give people when they actually get a match. You can really see about the area, you can see about the disease prevalence, you can see about the person to a very light level, and you can see the exact medical bill. But we've really thought about this to be like, okay, who else is doing this? How can we create a difference that no one's doing? And how do we keep pushing that to give more and more information so we can get more downloads, we can increase the interest that investors have, and some people will look at it and go, wow, we could use this for education. We could use this for da, da, da. And you go, yeah, exactly. So building that into the pitch about how you can be a bigger thing than what you are now is also super appealing to people, because people want to also be on the early tail of success. So if you can demonstrate that you're onto something, people want to get in early and go, oh, I backed them from the beginning. Yeah, no one believed in them. I was the one that believed in them. So really having that, I think, is really important. And also finding other ways to make money. Like, I think being innovative enough, you might actually not need a way to make money. And this is kind of the thing as a charity we think about a lot. This is another app that we run, but we woke up and asked the question, what if we never had to fundraise again? And what would that take, and how would we go about doing that? So what we've done is in another app, which we'll sort of test before moving into the DOGO app, is asking people to watch a social ad. So we realize that the people who will download our app are quite well-to-do, wealthy people who want to give and have the means to give, which is a very important group for advertisers. So what we've done is we've created a social ad section where people who, like companies who have a social mission can actually push an advertisement into the platform. So for instance, if Subway were having an organic sandwich that had no emissions end to end, we would show a video to our user who clicks on watch a social ad. And then once they've watched that, it would kick off a donation from Subway to the charity to actually fund us. So that's really interesting. So that could be like, say, a 50 pence, maybe 200 Naira donation to the charity each time somebody watches something, which then means that the more users we get, the more ad revenue we'll have, to a certain point where we don't actually even need any funding to run the charity. We can just run it through advertising. So when you match the two things up that I've shown you, so this part of having unlimited downloads matched with the video section to actually have the advertisements, theoretically, we could not only be launched and be very profitable, we can, have way more expansion and things like that. So really coming in it from that end, so like, what do I have? What assets do I have? How can I turn that into strategic advantage? And how can I use that to fuel the charity? Because also taking money can be a hassle. Like maybe you change the mission, maybe they want you to go in a certain direction. So always trying to fight for your own independence or a way to really spin this into a different enterprise is interesting. But don't be fooled by it. You definitely need capital to get going and to get sort of scaled out. So it's important that sort of as we're going through this, you're looking at, okay, what's going to get me that initial boost? But I think not only when we're talking about social enterprises, how do we become self-sufficient, but how do we thrive? Should be the new answer. And I think it's kind of why I like this space. I'm kind of almost like, what would it take for corporates to borrow ideas from the social world? It's always us looking at them going, oh, Google did this, Netflix did this, maybe I can do this in my app. It's like, what if we were innovative? What if we were the ones that built things and thought about things in a new way and leveraged what we have and they take it? So I'm really bullish on this, that we can do this as an industry and we should do this. I think, it'd be foolish of me to say that a lot of investors now are looking at how you leverage your resources. And AI is probably the easiest bet on that. It's widely accessible and it's highly powerful. But I think even just from a catching an investor's attention, anything with AI now instantly gets a reply. It's like no one wants to miss it. So if you can figure out what it is, even if you're doing, so how we're doing X, Y, and Z, but we're going to use AI to teach young girls at the local school, or we're going to use AI to help upskill people to do rural farming, or we're going to help use AI and vision AI to see if water molecules are safe to drink. There's so many options that you can really add to your portfolio that I think it's fine. And I would sort of give you a tip, like it doesn't actually have to be real AI. I don't think anything is real AI, really. I think about 4 or 5 companies are building real AI. Everyone else is just fudging things together and calling it. So don't be shy about sort of pulling your neck out and saying those things. I think you've got to really be creating avenues for yourself to be lucky. I think, turning up to this workshop is one of those avenues, right? Like maybe you get a piece of information, maybe you talk to someone in the chat and something happens, but you have to really be thinking about maximizing your opportunities. And have a saying, it's you've got to create an area for it to land. And the thing we like to say is, you got to maximize your surface area for serendipity. And it's like, how can I can't control fate, but I can improve my chances of being lucky. Maybe I can post once a week on LinkedIn and talk about what I'm doing, or maybe I can put out an ask in a WhatsApp group and tell people what funding I need and what type of returns I might get. But unless you're out there trying to be lucky, the likelihood is you probably won't get lucky. So I think really taking that into your hands and not feeling helpless, like luck is something that just happens to people. Like you can control this to a certain degree, not with definitive answers, but definitely with a few tips for sure. I think, this is a time where you guys are all building some amazing products. I walked through them in the list, and really dig into what makes you special, because that's the only way to really survive, right? Like there's going to be people that pop up and do a similar thing. It's like, what's our unique benefit, and really figuring that out. And it's like, what's going to keep us from someone else going, well, yeah, somebody else is going to come along and do that, or someone will do that as well. And for us, we have some interesting pieces, but for us, probably it's a sort of integrated system. So DOGO on its own, probably people have done before, right? Like you can send money from the UK to Nigeria, you can pay via insurance for someone's healthcare, you can download an app, you can uh, do advocacy work on the street and help people. But when you merge all those things together in a way that it flows, that suddenly becomes our lock-in, that becomes our competitive advantage. And the data that comes off that, again, becomes its own sort of advantage, where actually we could probably know more about local areas than a lot of local governments can. So it's an interesting thing that you can build. So what's unique to you guys, and how do you build that out? Because investors want to see that, because that's what sets you apart from all the other people, and also makes them feel like their investment is going to be safe. So definitely have a think about that. Do less to do more. I think this is a beautiful example of that. This is the 300 Spartans who managed to, I think it was King Ionidas, and maybe I think it was 200,000 men that they had, and they managed to keep them back with, a tight knit group of 300. And I think that's kind of the thing that I would say is, it's way more important to build a super team than an average team. It's way more important to message the right investors versus all the investors. It's way more important to focus on the right mission and the right projects rather than trying to do everything. And that's kind of one of the biggest traps we see, actually, is people say, I'm going to do DOGO. It's like, well, what's it for? It's like, well, it's for health, and it's for education, and it's for e-commerce. And you're like, whoa, 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 pick one, do one really well, please. After you can go from there. And I think this is kind of the real underlying theme of this whole thing, and I'll mention it a few more times before we finish, but this is all about storytelling. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. And I think with investors, it's exactly the same. Like, don't talk to them about, hey, I'm doing this thing and I need 2 million naira to do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to do this. It's actually, we're going to change the way in which local communities engage and work and trade with each other. We are going to empower 3 million young girls to be educated and add to the local economy. We are going to, like, that is really what investors want to hear. They don't want to hear the details of things. They want to hear the vision and the immensity. And it's the same for team leaders as well. If you want to get the best team, you have to sell them that story as well. So, get very comfortable at being really good at that. And bet on partnerships as well. So, people ask, what happens to partnerships? But I think in the space, we were all sort of saved by COVID. It's all a partnerships game, right? Like every day we were getting an update on the COVID situation through Johns Hopkins with the data partnership. We saw the F1 run out and go and work with each other to create ventilators and help people there. We saw Oxford and AstraZeneca collaborate to not only build and create a vaccine, but to do the distribution. Like, who else can you partner with? And how do you link all that together? And especially when it comes to 1 + 1 = 3, which means that if you can work with another organization who might have a nice overlap with you guys, you create a proposition and you take that to an investor, that's something that someone on their own just simply can't do. So thinking about what type of partnerships you can weave into your business model and talk to investors about is a super powerful mission as well. And here are some really cool ones that we've seen in the UK. So Olio is a food waste charity, so you can basically donate food to a neighbor. They did a really great partnership with Tesco to collect all the food and then distribute it to people that need it. This is a one with Colgate and Change Please. So Change Please is a homeless charity here in the UK, and they teach people how to be baristas
and basically get them back into accommodation. And they did a really cool campaign with Colgate where they got a whole bus, they transformed it so that people were doing haircuts in there, they were doing dental treatment in there, they were giving out coffees in there. And it's great for both parties, right? You can see Colgate like, you know, clean smile, go and get your teeth done. And at the same time, change please, it's all this stuff, right? And this is also Adidas and Parley for the World. So they did a massive ocean beach sweeping campaign where they took all the plastic and actually used that to recreate shoes. So you can see how it can add new customers to Adidas. It brings over a social demographic. So you've got to see, what do I have? What might a brand want in that? And sort of run with that. So, you know, we've got a campaign. I didn't actually put it in the slide, but we're trying to get a healthcare insurance company to sponsor the first match for every DOGO user. So we can go to Vitality and say, hey, by the way, do you want to sponsor 1,000 matches? So people will download the match knowing that their first match has been paid for. They'll then see that Vitality covered it and paid for it. They can learn more about Vitality, and then everybody wins. So then they'll then sign up and download and pay. So how can you figure out these partnership routes? And if anyone wants to talk about partnerships, I literally can spend all weekend talking about partnerships. So please feel free to reach out and message me. And yeah, just a very quick fire, few points before we sort of break into Q&A and talk about some things. So I think the number one thing with VCs or investors, they want to see what I call the founder problem fit, which is, why are you specifically the right person or team to solve that problem? Not random problems or someone else's problem, like you specifically. And it's like, what are the real strategic advantages you have? And it's not, oh, I was a project manager somewhere. It's like, there are a million project managers. Like, why you and why this problem? And then also, why now? I think that's kind of the thing. But, you know, hiring experts, having B and C players can cost, especially when you're doing this stuff that's, you need to nail it. Like, don't be shy about demanding the best from people, especially on the volunteering side as well. I think when we're doing a lot of projects, it's easier to take every volunteer, and you actually spend a lot of time, a lot of energy pushing along people that aren't actually committed or aren't actually capable of delivering what you need to deliver. So be very careful about what you outsource to volunteers and how you onboard volunteers as well. I think picking the right model is a really important part as well. So are you a social enterprise? Is it something that should be a social enterprise? Should you actually just be a normal company? Should you just be a company with a purpose attached to it? Should you be a charity? Should you split out and have different sorts of models? So really think, and maybe if you need to speak with a lawyer or something, like do that, or with a friendly VC, talk to them. So for instance, one of the things we're thinking about now is, should DOGO be a charity, but the actual technology be its own company? And that company is for profit. We can repurpose and white label and sell that technology to other charities that want to do the same thing. And then we use those profits to give back to the charity. Like, would that let us scale quicker? Would it help us get an acquisition cost? Will it let us buy more ads? Like, how would that work? Is that the right thing to do? Having those stress tests and figuring that out is really important. And, you know, just going through the options that you can have. Some of it, you might go to a VC and they say, this sounds great, but this should be a charity. This feels weird. I don't know if this is a cool thing to do. So like really understanding like what works, what's the right model for you is worth spending a lot of time on. Tough calls are necessary. So I think that's the thing, like you can't have it all. And sometimes you need to protect the mothership by making very hard decisions. My main criticism of a lot of charities a lot of times are they're not ruthless enough. You never see a charity having redundancies. You know, you never see Oxfam or letting go of 2,000 people in the cuts. Like, it's almost a natural part of an ecosystem to make it efficient. In Google, there's a reorg every kind of 1.5 years. It's like you need to be moving people around to sort of get the best and keep people shit fresh. And even in the journalism industry, you see it. They never keep journalists on the same topic for too long because they get stale, they get old. And in the charity world, I think what happens, or the social world, is people keep accumulating resources, and then it actually adds to mid-level management that makes it very hard to be effective and deliver the mission you want to do, because there are gatekeepers who just want to be involved and keep a job that are actually stopping people. So you get these really driven people come into the company, they see all the bureaucracy, and then they want to leave. Or worse, they become part of this middle management and become added to the problem. So sometimes you need to make tough calls. Don't be afraid to make them. I think, you know, it's a misnomer in our industry to think like that. Stuff out easy money. So there is easy money if you know where to look. And I think figuring out, like talking to a corporate, say, hey, by the way, do you have like a gifting thing for your internal employees? Oh, you do? How does it work? Can I be one of your suppliers? Yeah, you sure you can. Oh, cool. Like, can I maybe come into the office and do a talk and maybe, you know, tell people what I do? One of the things we're doing with DOGO now to raise, so we're trying to launch in Uganda, and hopefully Ghana and South Africa afterwards, is we're going to churches in the UK that are a part of that community. So there are probably the better part of 20 Ugandan churches in London alone. And we'll go there, we'll do a 5-minute talk, and we'll say, look, we're trying to raise £1,000. Can you help us? Like, this is what we can do. And hopefully you get inspired by the mission too. And maybe we even name the first stand after the church. But like, that might be an easier win than joining a very competitive application process. So figure out what's actually easier and go from there. And I think that's kind of the next point, which is swim in open waters. Like, don't be crowded up where the competition is super high and difficult. Like, you know, we're all unique. Find your own lane and keep quiet about it when you find it. You know, make sure you you know, you've got to look out for yourself to a certain degree. And you know, this is kind of the bit where I'm sort of saying is, don't be a turtle. So, you know, fundamentally, poke your head out and let people know you're there. Tell people all the time what you're doing on LinkedIn. Keep posting updates, keep posting videos, keep telling people the story, keep reminding people the mission. It's something that they say that like you need around 7 touch points to make a sale. So like you need to figure out who's going to see you, your company from where. Like they've seen, oh, I saw this last week. Oh, I've not been to the web. I saw it again. All I keep seeing is this particular project or this founder's always speaking somewhere. Like really put yourself out there and don't be like, oh, what if they don't message me back? What if they don't this? I had a colleague who said something really powerful one time. They said, my mum said, you already have a no, you might get a yes. And for me, that was super powerful, which is like, look, right now you have a no. By not asking for money, you already have the no. Like the only thing you can get is an upside. So don't be shy and don't be a turtle. Get out there. So it's kind of the part about don't be shy. You know, ask for a meeting, ask for a coffee, like do it in a thoughtful way and in a respectful way, in a way that you've actually looked at the person and you understand what they're trying to do, but just ask. You never know. And it's uncomfortable. I understand it's uncomfortable, but it's the only way. And really, there's no magic you can do behind that. And be different. So, you know, fundamentally, let's try and yeah, just stand out, be different, take a different approach. Like, I think this is also the thing when you're in the charity world or the social impact world, which is you spend so much time not trying to offend people or upset people. And actually, sometimes you might need to say something controversial, or maybe you swear in your headline, like, at least you're getting someone's attention. Like, sometimes you do have to be different. Maybe you use complete different coloring. Maybe you make, you know, I saw someone, I think it's Portugal, the band Portugal. They did the whole website in Excel. And people are like, that's cool. It's like literally the whole website is an Excel sheet and you can click it and stuff like that. But it's like they thought about being different. They thought about how do I stand out, whether they're the best band or not, or they should sell the most tickets or not, it doesn't matter. Like that differentiation will carry them. And lastly, again, you know, we've said it, I'll say it again. It's all about storytelling. Focus on the story, tell people the vision, tell people again and again and again. Say it like you believe it. I know it's hard because you know the ins and outs of your business. You know where the flaws are. You know where the faults are. You know what's not really that true. But say it like it is and say it with your chest.